Hello, I'm Dr. Libby Kemkaran and this is Tame Your Brain 20. So we've done quite a lot actually, guys, and I was going to say, for those of you that I know, some of you have been watching every single one right at the start, others of you are catching up. There's a lot of different ways people are doing this. Some are just dipping in and out, which is brilliant. There's no right way of using this material, but I am going to do something today which is wrap it all up together, everything we've done so far, so we can start to make sense of it going forward. Short as ever, because I know we're all a bit tired of screens. So as ever, it's going to be about 5 to 9 minutes long maximum, and that gives you time for a little bit of a de-stress, but doesn't take time out of a busy day. And by the end, we'll hopefully have a bit more understanding of what we've gone through so far. And obviously, you guys that have watched from the start have had 20 times 10 minutes of these by then, and that is quite a lot. So I hope that by the end of this, you're beginning to see how you can actually implement this. It's all been theoretical so far, and maybe not as much of the actualities of it as I would like, so we're going to start moving that now to what we can actually do. We've had some overexcitement this weekend with the kittens. They will, as you see in a minute, now clamber their own way out of the box, and they're completely activated. They're waddling around trying to hit each other, so no different to my kids really. So we started with looking at the 6 human needs. I'm going to cover that material today, but how they're important to our relationships, and how, if we use them in context, we can thread them together and actually begin to have an outstanding level of connection, a level of intimacy, a level of knowledge of the other person when you know a bit more about what their human needs are. So without further ado, I'm going to switch screens, and we're going to, hopefully, here into the box, we can see our little bundles are in their traditional heap, and they're a little bit more aware now when we're actually talking. So they do actually respond quite well, but if you see what happens when we take them out, we get a whole different set of behaviours all of a sudden. Come here, fatty. Oh, there we go. So these are now a full 3.5 weeks old, and what we start to see now is all the play behaviours. And oh, we lost a kitten there. Come here. Well done. And we'll start to see them actually beginning to interact with each other in a more playful way. And as humans, because everything I say is for a reason, as you know, we have set play structures. We have set ways that we interact with people that we're in a relationship with. For example, we have set ways that we interact with our kids, and they have set ways, and they're all behaviours learnt in this formative period where they're beginning to work out who they are. So using the human needs, using what we know about this, certainty is the first one, and that is vital for our species. Absolutely vital, and that was what we lost in those first few weeks. And we have a whole area of our brain that is just designed to keep us safe, and it's literally like a sentry standing guard on the bridge of a ship shouting "watch out" all the time. So, and obviously, as I say, that kicked off massively when we as a world were faced with mortal threat, and high levels of anxiety came from that. And then as it normalises and we get back some certainty, as there's food in shops, blah blah blah, we move to a slightly different place, and that's where we begin to crave the next of our needs. So variety, classic one at the moment, hands up who's a bit bored, hands up who's drinking for something to do, or binge TV watching, or sleeping to excess, or not sleeping enough. These are all what we call class 4 behaviours that are designed to soothe the anxiety caused by that original uncertainty. But it's also because the uncertainty of not knowing if that holiday we've booked is actually going to be there, if it is actually a thing, the uncertainty of all those things is quite a threat to us. Oh, we've lost all our kittens, there they are. So when we have to have some knowledge of what's going to happen, our brains need the uncertainty of variety, but they don't like the uncertainty in the sense of, but what happens next? So it's a fine line to tread. Then there's the need for connection, and love and connection is one of those really important things that we're also challenged with at the moment. Some people haven't seen elderly relatives for months now, so we're getting inventive, aren't we? And I'm speaking this week on leadership at a festival that was supposed to take place in a beautiful Cambridge college, my old uni, but now, however, the organisers have had to move it all online. It's a massive job and doing really well, but we will be trying to connect with our delegates. We'll be trying to build a relationship with them whilst they're miles away. And, you know, we're human animals. We read the micro signals, like the flick of an eyebrow, the hunch of a shoulder, and someone falling asleep at the back. We read all those things. And if we haven't got those in our sight, the connection is really hard. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how connection works as individuals. Those are the first three needs, but when we're in a relationship, the other person will have a hierarchy of needs that may or may not be the same as yours. And they can peacock, they can deliberately display a set of behaviours in the courtship phase just in order to gain attention. This is something that every human animal does, and every animal does, and they often lie a little bit in the process of that. My dissertation was on animals lying deliberately to gain attention. It's hilarious. But when we look at the way that we use our human needs with our relationships, it's really fascinating. So I just want to go on to the next one. It's our need for significance. And that's a funny one, because you can have significance from anything you do. And I think most homeschool mums have calmed down now, trying to do it perfectly, and realise how impossible that is. And we've just set lower expectations on ourselves based on lots of things. But we've also got to remember the need for significance, because we can't ignore it. We do need it, but it's not to be necessarily the most important person in the room, but it is to matter. And if you go to that dinner party and you slowly realise it wouldn't matter if you were there or not, and conversely, sometimes you realise you've just really connected with someone and impacted them. And that's really powerful. And then we go to our higher level needs, and one is contribution. Again, that dinner party we mentioned above, some people get crushed if contribution is their highest value in their hierarchy and they can't give it, they're not being given enough attention to give it, then that's a little bit soul destroying, and it has nothing to do with them thrusting themselves forward for significance. It's just their vehicle of how they meet their needs. So we've also covered growth, which is the final human need, and obviously we all need that continually. We all need to feel like you're growing or you're dying. I'm stretching myself this week by building a digital course. I'm not in the least techie, so it's a bit of a threat. So I'm calming the circuits. I'm using all those other things that we did right back at the beginning in the early videos. And don't forget those, because they're super important. That 6 rhythmic breaths having the power to massively shift your biochemistry. And we've also covered Hepgekel, which is those 8 reset questions to push your wiring into a healthy place. It's all too easy to swan around a bit on social media and let other people's opinions and reporting and any government spin this week, they can all alter your mood. And instead, you just need to come back to base camp and do those 8 powerful questions that ground you and just make you feel better. Literally, it's about feeling better. So if you've forgotten Hepgekel, start there. There really is no other place that does good fast. So when we look at the 6 human needs, we get a picture of how they work together. And if we're angry or upset about something, go inside and ask, what is it really? What is this emotion a vehicle to? Because often it's just that someone has poked your significance button, or they've disconnected with you and they've taken away your certainty. And I'm talking about whether you're rowing with a partner, whether you're rowing with a child. Very often you can pinpoint exactly what human need they've just pranged. A common cry that I've used today is, I can't do everything, with my kids, because they're making me feel far less than significant when I tell them to tidy up and the little sods don't. So we can look at all the things that happen to us on a daily basis of which need am I getting poked in, and literally work out another way you can meet that need. And this works the other way too. It's how you can also get an amazing relationship by just meeting the other person's top 3 needs consistently. And that creates some sort of magic. That creates an addiction. Literally, if you meet 3 of somebody's needs at the same time, and you can think of anything that's a classic addiction like social media, it's because it hits all the right buttons for people. So use your powers for good, people. Find out who this other person is that you're with, and that goes for kids as well as your relationships with your significant other, and then work out how to meet them. So that's it for today. Nice and short. And I hope that's useful. We'll talk a little bit more about the power of this in relationships tomorrow, and about more of the profiling stuff that I've mentioned before, because there are also different brain types, and depending on your hierarchy of needs, depending on your brain type, there are different things you need. And that's why a lot of relationships will start really well, and we call it the honeymoon phase, and then we stop meeting the other person's needs and we forget to meet their needs, and then guess what, it all goes wrong. So thanks for coming. If you're new to me, all the other videos are on tame-your-brain.com. You can sign up for the oft-promised newsletter there. I'll be back tomorrow, and I will be doing a very short one tomorrow because I've got a course running tomorrow night. So stay well, and I'll see you then. Bye.